buy a 32-passenger commercial airplane with a broken off nose, cracked windows, and a leaky roof, you know you better get hustling. If you live in the north, anyone else out there in the Midwest or northern part of the United States, or just somewhere that gets a lot of snow, let us know in the comments. We are in Michigan and there is snow coming, and we need to get this thing waterproofed before all the snow comes and our airplane just ends up being soaking wet inside and ruining all of the projects that we've worked so hard to finish this summer. And to all our TikTok followers that are very worried about what our neighbors think about us, don't worry, the squirrels don't seem to mind. So without further ado, come on inside our airplane, we'll take a look around, we'll show you all of the projects that we've been working on to make sure that our airplane doesn't get completely annihilated by the winter weather. As I mentioned, the nose of our airplane fell off. This happened in transport from where we bought the airplane, hauling it down the road to where we live. I won't go into that whole story because I know some of you have been following us from the beginning and I don't want to bore you with all those details again, but I will link the very first video above, and if you haven't seen that video, I would highly encourage you to watch that and check out how this whole thing got started. But I do feel like I have to mention that this was obviously the biggest point where water would be coming in to our airplane. In fact, we actually let the airplane sit for an entire winter. We had a tarp over the cracked portion of the airplane. This did keep a lot of the snow and weather out, but there are still some spots that are rotted in the floor and some damp spots in the nose of the airplane that we want to make sure stay dry this year. So we wanted to make sure that that was the first thing that we tackled, got the nose back on. We had to jack up the nose of the airplane. We had to rivet it back together on the outside. We also put pins in to connect the wood from the fuselage portion with the nose of the airplane to really make sure it's nice and secure so that when we do haul it again and relocate this airplane, it is sure to stay together during that transition. The skylight you're seeing me remove here is one of the really cool features on our airplane. Unfortunately, we are getting some water leaking through this part of the plane. So we wanted to go ahead and find a way that we could still be able to open and close this hatch, but that it would be more weatherproof. So we decided to get some plexiglass to put over the skylight so that when you remove it, you could still see out. It would still be a really cool feature, but it would be a lot more resistant to the weather. There was a lot that went into this process, so I'm going to just make a whole video about that. So make sure you're subscribed to our channel so that you'll be sure to see that video when it comes out. Another repercussion of the great accident of 2021 was that when the nose fell off of the rest of the fuselage, it dislodged the windows. We really can't remember how good of shape the windows were in before we purchased it, but we do know for sure that they were in really bad shape by the time we got it home. So David decided to pull out the old windows, build new frames for the windows, put in new plexiglass windows for at least the two larger windows in the front. We then sealed around them with several layers of caulk and silicone, and then put a trim piece around them that was held on by butyl tape. In the end, we hope that these windows are good enough to withstand all the winter that is headed our way. If you're interested in all the details about how we installed these windows, check out the link to the video above. There are actually 3 full-length videos all about what went into installing those windows. We had a couple of areas that we wanted to make sure got a good fresh coat of paint on them before the winter weather came. One of those parts was the back of the fuselage. This portion of the airplane is actually made out of wood, and the paint is pretty worn off at this point. We worry that if we didn't put a fresh coat of paint on before all the yucky weather came, it would just continue to disintegrate and rot with the bad weather. So we went ahead, put a full fresh coat of paint on, then we put a second layer of paint on, and we're hoping that this will be enough to protect this part of the airplane from the elements of the winter.
The other thing that we're working on is, you can see here, from the famous crash, we got cracking here. I did epoxy this one already, so that's solid. These look to be fairly solid, so I think what we're going to do is use some fine grit sandpaper, sand it, get it all nice and clean, and we're actually just going to repaint over the top of it because there's not much movement. This one had a lot of movement in it, and I used JB Weld or epoxy, something like that, in order to anchor it down so it's not going to move with the temperature and crack the paint anymore. So These look to be good. We're gonna sand them and probably just paint to seal them. What I'm trying to do is get some paint to match this gray. The only thing I can see is, I don't know if you can see down here, I'm gonna set this tripod thing up here. There's a little hatch cover there, it's kind of big. I don't know what's gonna fall out either. I guess I can do it this side so you can... Son of a gun. Gotta be kidding me. Of course it's stripped. Try to get it hand screwed here. Neat turn, man. What? What? Yeah, baby. It's a piece I needed.
David then took his tiny trapdoor, headed to Home Depot, and had the paint matched so that we would have the perfect gray for the front of the airplane.
The gray is almost spot on, so pretty excited about that.
With everything sanded and what we hoped would be the perfect matching gray in hand, David got to work painting the nose of the airplane.
It hasn't dried yet. You can kind of see where it is. The texture might give it away from the brush. We might have to sand this whole thing down again and repaint it. See, at least it's sealed for the winter.
The last project that we tackled to winterize our airplane was fixing all of the leaky spots in the roof of our airplane. We made a whole video about that process. I'll go ahead and put it on the screen here. For everyone else, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again in the next video.